My name is Bob Simon, and it's the first mock that I've built for an event. This is my third time here at BrickFair, and finally took the plunge to build this. I liked building the Vatican for some reason as a kid out of Lego, and so it's why I chose to do the Vatican. I told my mother about a year and a half ago I wanted to do this, and she said, of course you will, because you did it all the time as a kid, for whatever reason.
So when you started building, what was the first step? Because that's always a biggie.
I was held up for some months with the math of it, because I haven't had math since my junior year in high school, and I'm not good at it. And I was trying to find some friends who, like math teachers, who could help me, and they really weren't terribly helpful. So, like I started with the facade. I started in the end of September with the facade. And I was sort of, I guess the columns, I knew I was, there are only so many curved Lego pieces. So I knew which pieces I wanted to use as the large columns on the front. I knew which pieces I was going to use the round 2x2s for the columns in the colonnade. So that was one limitation. Then I wanted to show the exact number of balconies and doors and niches on the front of the facade. So that was what dictated really the size of the facade, for me. Once I finished the facade, like that took 2 months to do, 2.5 months. Once I did that, I began to realize the dimensions of the nave.
Yeah, and so it sort of almost like builds itself, right? You start with a nucleus and kind of grow outward.
I was very afraid. I thought about stopping because, I realized how large I had to do it. But I was already invested to that extent, so I kept on going. So January and February, I worked on the walls. I took a break about a third of the way up and did the dome in March. And that was the part that was the scariest for me, because I had never really used Legos to do a sphere. And I really didn't like the way that stacked the bricks look, especially, in relation to the Vatican dome.
Jagged edges, kind of.
Yes, yeah, and I see that as so round. The other thing is the height of it. I mean, it isn't a perfect sphere and stuff either. So I was petrified, but I ended up just coming up with that solution, and it actually took me 2 days to do the dome.
It's
it just really
2-day build session.
It was say 2 afternoons and evenings,
wow.
Days that I was able to take the afternoon and evening and devote time, and it just happened, very quickly. And then the last part to get accomplished, was the St. Peter's Square. Even though it was really the first thing that I felt some surety about the design. What I knew right from the beginning was going to give me the circular shape of the colonnade were railroad tracks. So I have some railroad tracks hidden underneath the plates, for the roof.
So that's kind of the substructure, I guess, right?
Yes, yeah.
And an interesting feature here is the ground here. If you want to talk about how you did that.
It's one of the successful, I think, design elements, but probably one of the flaws in my design too. The cobblestoning started out as an idea because of pick-a-brick walls having available the 1x1 round, tiles. And I figured it was a cheap solution. I also had pick-a-brick walls that had 2x2, tan tiles. So I bought a number of them. What I didn't realize is, even though I bought both in great quantity, I didn't realize I was going to need 44,000 cobblestones, and that I was going to need 12,000 tan tiles, to do this. I didn't realize that one gray base plate would take 574 or something, tan tiles to cover it. So I ended up having to get a lot of those, from Bricklink, after the fact. The cobblestone allowed for diagonals, and they also allowed for the trapezoid for the shaped side buildings to just rest on the tiles. It also allowed for mounting the front and middle columns of the colonnade, but letting the other circular ones just stand on. But it was intense. We did about half of the tiling at home, you know, over lots of hours. And the last few days here at BrickFair, we spend, my one friend just spent almost like 6 hours a day putting down cobblestones.
And so were tweezers involved? Because when I saw this and I saw the technique, I just thought tweezers immediately.
No, just one by one, just laying, laying them down. Yeah, we didn't find a better technique, you know, than that.
That's dedication right there.
It is.
And so you mentioned the Lego store for the source of the 1x1 round tiles. Was there any other significant source of parts? BrickLink, I would imagine?
I started out with BrickLink. I realized, you know, halfway through, soon into the project, I realized that you can't do a huge build like this without, you know, BrickLink, especially if you have, you know, specific parts in mind and you need them in quantity.
Yeah.
It seems to me because, you know, like the Lego shop online just doesn't have all of the pieces in their inventory and stuff that available. But I also, in the beginning, I bought a lot of the first purchases I made were architecture studio sets.
Really?
I went through about 9 of those.
Okay.
I wanted immediate results on the facade, doing that cornice up there with the rails, the white rails. I think one day I went out at my local Toys R Us and bought 6 Trevi fountains to accomplish that. Number of pick-a-brick wall purchases and BrickLink. Also the yard sale last year here at BrickFair.
Yeah, that's a great
There was a couple who had a great big Rubbermaid tub of white pieces that I was able to purchase.
Justin and Jessica Rupp, I want to say.
They had used.
Yeah.
It's ironic because they had used it for their wedding.
Yeah, was it a menorah or no? It was like a
huppah.
A huppah, yeah. And so it turns into
another religious context. They told me when they gave me we made the purchase last year. They gave a great price and they said, do something great for next year. We want to see something great happen.
You built a Vatican.
Ironically, it's still in that religious context.
That's amazing.
So you mentioned then, did you say this was the first creation you've displayed here at BrickFair, or?
This is the first.
Okay, wow, so you came big here then.
First build, yeah.
And so when you break it down for transport, how does it kind of break down? Are you breaking into sections?
The walls of the nave break down into, I believe it's 13 pieces. And the dome is just carried out to a van. The 3 apses just sat in a van. The smaller sections of those walls of the nave were in a milk crate. The facade traveled. The long walls of this building, you know, that's right on the square, I realized I couldn't find a box long enough. I thought about weddings that I had been at when the florist delivers the corsages in a long, narrow box.
Yeah.
I went to my local florist for a box for that. And the colonnade had to be reassembled here.
Okay.
So the columns were just laid in a box. The little tiles, the cobblestone tiles, as best we could, created a dam. Listen, they're held together with Technic bricks and pins. So I created a little dam of Technic bricks, the tile on top, to try to sort of dam those in. It didn't quite work too well, but it was the best possible attempt.
Well, awesome stuff. This is just absolutely inspiring to see on the table. Just immense.
Thank you.
I noticed you're nominated for Best Historical as well, so congratulations on that. That's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Awesome work.